Welcome back. Whether you're thinking about buying or selling a home, it always helps to know what's trending with the larger real estate market, right? Well, Seattle-based realtor Brooke Davis gave us an update on what's happening in our area. The first question is usually, are we in a buyer or seller's market right now? But I feel like in Seattle, you're always in a seller's market.
That is correct. We are in a seller's market, and that's probably how the year starts out most years. And so it's been an interesting seller's market, that's for sure.
I mean, tell me more about that. How interesting. I mean, obviously we've got, COVID, we've got so many other issues affecting kind of the world at large. How has it affected the real estate market?
Well, it's actually made people want a new home, want a different space. And so that has fueled the real estate market. And right now, probably the biggest factor making it a seller's market is we need homes to sell. We need inventory. There's way more buyers in the market than there are homes for sale, but by some of the largest volumes that I've ever seen. So some listings are getting, triple digit numbers of showings in under a week. So that's over 100 individual showings from realtors, private showings in just a week's amount of time.
It almost sounds like intimidating if you haven't already bought a home.
Sure.
Is there any way, how do you compete?
That is a really good question. So it really starts with, you're working with a realtor and identifying the strategy that's going to work for each person. A lot of times that's actually deciding, is this the house that I'm ready to compete for, right? So if homes are getting really high volumes of offers, it really comes down to kind of identifying which one you're ready to move forward on. Of course, there are some strategies that everyone works towards. Like right now, for example, it's very common to waive contingencies. So what that might mean is just be prepared to pay the difference in the event of like a low appraisal. If there's an issue with the financing, be prepared to either take care of that inspection in advance of making the offer or look through like seller prepared inspection reports, which is becoming more common right now. So there are a number of things you can do to make yourself more competitive to the seller when you find that this is the right property.
This is really great advice. You were mentioning because of, COVID, we're all staying at home more. We're all sick of where we're living. So let's buy a new home. Have you noticed people are, because we're working from home, moving out of the city more?
That certainly has been a big trend. And all through 2020, we saw some of the suburbs outside of the city start to appreciate actually at higher rates than in the city. And people oftentimes right now are saying, look, I don't need to commute every single day to work. And so I no longer need to live within the city limits. And a lot of companies, as everybody knows, are, they're now saying they may be able to work remotely indefinitely. Or what I hear really often now is, well, I'm sure I'll be able to work remotely at least a couple days a week. And so if you're only commuting 2 or 3 days a week, that really cuts down on the amount of time you're sitting in your car.
It really, truly does. All right, let's say you want to stay in the city, and so your option is a condo. Or how does the market look for condominiums right now?
It is such a good time to be a condo buyer. So I do have some really good news for buyers right now in terms of not having to have those high volumes of competition that we see in the residential market. We actually saw the peak of condominium inventory late last fall, and that meant that buyers really had a lot of options, unlike the residential market. So, and this is in city condos that we're talking about. If we look at condominiums outside of the city in more suburban areas, those are actually quite competitive, as it turns out, and have seen a lot of appreciation. Yes, there's less of them. But when you look at year over year median prices for Seattle condominiums, they did come down. So it is a good time to be a condo buyer.
Interesting. How has this whole thing affected renters, let's say? Is there less, more? What's going on there?
Yeah, rents have kind of done the opposite in city that home prices have. So rents have come down. There's a lot of large apartment buildings, especially, when we're talking about apartments versus houses for rent. A lot of the large apartment buildings are offering incentives, several free months rent, or lowering people's rent. So it is a good time to be a renter. It's a very different market from the residential market right now.
How do you find, I already decided in just this brief conversation that if I ever buy a house, I'm calling you, but how do you find the right real estate agent, Brooke?
That's a really great question. So if you're a buyer, be prepared to spend some time with this person, right? So it has to be someone that you feel like you have a great line of communication with. And, also look for their experience and have they dealt with multiple offers. Now, if you're a home seller in this market, you know that you are going to be popular, but it's also important to know that you may be leaving money on the table if you don't have someone working for you who is also experienced with multiple offers, that they know how to organize and they know how to best prepare you to look really good in this market, and then also be prepared to take on and talk with all of the buyer's agents in a way that will best benefit you.